And we're live. So there was a time when I spent no more than 3 minutes on Facebook on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This was back when I had my big school and I wrote a blog for my students and followers. So I would write the article first thing in the morning, and then I would send it out as a group email, and then I'd post it on the blog, and then I would copy the link for the blog onto the school's Facebook page. So it took me all of 3 minutes to do that. Today I'm on Facebook almost every day in my capacities as an administrator for the I Love Jeet Kune page, and of course doing this, the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast and the Jeet Kune Dialogues programs. But no one told me about the internet trolls. All right. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 82. This is the one about some current Jeet Kune issues. As you're logging in, if you guys would be nice enough to say where you're logging in from and hit the like button, and then continue to do so if I say anything particularly insightful. Richard Torres is here, Sifu Randy is here. All right, I think Dale Barger is going to be on. He just sent me a message to make sure everything was okay. I'm a little bit late because I had to do a handoff of some paperwork for a workshop that I'm doing in the Tampa area this weekend. I've finally kind of put myself into the whole seminar scene, and so we're launching that this coming weekend. So if anybody here happens to be in the Citrus County area of Florida, then come on by. It's a place called Agogi Combat up in Inverness, Florida. Anyhow, so I had to hand off some paperwork to Glenn, and who's on here now. So if I'm late, it's Glenn's fault. We'll all blame him, right? Okay. So one thing about this whole online posting that I kind of hate is that it's difficult to convey context or to add subtlety to what it is that you're saying when you write. So I'm reduced to using quotation marks, right, like I did for today's broadcast title, and that was done to convey the meaning that I don't consider these topics to be like real issues of earth-shattering importance, right? They're relevant and of interest only to the small percentage of us here on Facebook in the different Jeet Kune groups. So for me, the only things that are issues are things that will do actual harm to people. So I'm not interested in like the fights that some of these people seem to want to pick with others over, you know, trivial matters in the martial art world or in the JKD world, right? And in the grand scheme of things, these are just things that you know, that concern a tiny population or a tiny percentage of the world's population. So, you know, if that's your deal, if you're only on Facebook or on the internet to do what they call trolling or what have you, please stay as far away as possible as you can from the I Love Jeet Kune page, and you know, go spend your time somewhere else. All right. So these issues, inverted commas, right, that came up. They came up on different places here on Facebook. A lot of it was right here on the I Love Jeet Kune page. Some of it was on Chris Kent's Jeet Kune Fellowship page, and in a couple of other places. So one issue was Jeet Kune and self-defense. So apparently some people do not realize that Jeet Kune is a martial art method which focuses primarily on self-defense as opposed to any other aspect of martial art training. Maybe their lack of realization is because, like Paul Vunat recently said, that a lot of people out there still seem to think that Jeet Kune is what they see or what they saw Bruce Lee doing on screen. And Chris mentioned that people need look no further. Let me see if I have it here. Nope, I don't. Right, but Chris mentioned that people don't need to look any further than volume 4 of Bruce Lee's fighting method, right, to see the application of all the stuff that's in volume 1, 2, and 3, all of the training stuff that's in volumes 1, 2, and 3 is showed in self-defense scenarios in volume 4. right? I was kind of pleased with myself when I read what he had written, because we have a similar idea when it comes to the handling of an attack, right? That is the idea of before, during, and after, right? Meaning that you have the option of dealing with any type of situation at like 3 different points in time, right? So shutting down the action before it even gets developed, dealing with the opponent's action at some time during its development, and then if the person has already grabbed you, as Sifu Chris wrote, and now you have to deal with that situation, then you're obviously dealing with the after effects of their attack. You see what I did there? Okay, so if you study with me, that before, during, and after thing, that is, we call that going to Bermuda, but that's a story for another time, right? Like Sifu Chris, I find it interesting that there are people who teach Jeet Kune, but then they go to like a different art for their self-defense training or for their self-defense applications, right? So if you want to see an example of how that thinking has been lost, right? You've seen this before. Fighting Arts, what do you call it? March 76, right? And it's here on page 39, but I think I have the backwards display, so you guys might not, be able to read it with me. But here it's in this Jeet Kune technique number 3, and what it says in this part right here at the top, right where my finger is, right? What it says is that Inosano made it plain that he would not let an opponent get him into such a position, but that if he was caught in such a way, this is what he would do. So it's him showing how to get out of a kind of a combination choke and arm lock, right? So a couple of things come out of that for me. One is, keep in mind that Sifu Inosano comes out of a Kempo karate background where, as far as I understand, Alfred Magnan is on here. Alfred could probably verify this. The Kempo karate background, they repeatedly practice specific responses to like specific self-defense situations. So this early day approach of Sifu Inosano's was kind of a, I don't want to use a harsh word, but it was kind of a rejection of the classical approach to self-defense training, right? So the second thing that comes out is that if you look at it, right, it's from 43 years ago. It's not really a high-level restraint technique, and Sifu Chris is not really putting it on Inosano. You know, he's not, as they would say in modern days, he's not really contesting Inosano's counter to the thing. So obviously, the grappling aspect of Jeet Kune, as somewhat portrayed here, that needed to be upgraded. But does that mean that you train this kind of a rear choke situation only from the BJJ ground fighting perspective, and you abandon the Jeet Kune approach of training the before, during, and after aspects of that defense? That's not a rhetorical question. I actually want you guys to weigh in and comment on that. Right? Okay, the second issue was the one of simple attack versus single attack, right? So simple angular, simple angulated, simple direct, whatever it is that the second word is, but it was the simple versus the single thing, right? So this topic, I'm glad to say that this was a great example of how intelligent Jeet Kune people discuss their different sources of knowledge and information. So Richard Torres started it all by showing pages of Bruce Lee's original notes where the word simple is used and not the word single. So by the time the dust of the discussion settled, right, after contributions to the topic from people like David Chang, David Hatch, Mark Stewart, Lamar Davis, Kevin Seaman, I was left feeling that while some people will continue to teach it as single attack, perhaps because that's how it was taught to them, that's how it was explained to them, and since they can perhaps see why the original terminology of simple could have been changed, since, unless I read it wrong, every example of a simple attack that was given was also an example of a single as in a one count at a time attack. So, but I believe that the confusion arose or arises from some people thinking that since in fencing, right, it was actually in the page that Richard that Sifu Richard showed. It says that a simple attack is composed of a single blade movement. Then I think the confusion might arise that interpreting it as a single attack is not that much different. But I think what gets lost in the translation or in the interpretation is the idea that if you hit more than once, that it had to be referred to as a compound attack or an attack by combination. So the solution, so to speak, as Sifu Richard pointed out, is in the understanding of the rhythm, right? As in 1, 2, 3, which would be 3 simple attacks because they're all one at a time, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, which is a different rhythm, and so that would be the attack by combination, right? In any case, what I really enjoyed was that everybody seemed to have benefited from having kind of a back in time trip, you know, like a back in time adventure into the historical scenarios, the historical beginnings of early Jeet Kune, right? The issue number 3 was the strong side forward debate, right? So apparently there are people out there who believe that strong side forward means right side forward. And I guess that's because almost every action picture of Bruce Lee that you see pretty much shows him in right lead. And he was, after all, the pioneer of the whole strong side forward approach. But we know that Bruce Lee did this because of his idea of using the lead hand in a fashion similar to how a fencer uses his lead hand, which carries the sword. What Chris Kent pointed out to us is that Dan Inosanto kind of explained Bruce Lee's rationale to be along the lines of, I will train so that my lead hand delivers as powerful or more powerful a punch as anyone's rear hand, right? You get that? And then same thing for the lead kick, right? He wanted to train his lead kick, let's say like the lead side kick, to be as powerful as a Thai boxer's rear round kick, right? I hope you get what's the important part there, right? Bruce Lee wanted to train in order to get his technique up to that. And so obviously, as Sifu, Chris pointed out, the influence of the orthodox fighting position, right? Like, so for a right-hander, the whole left side forward, that would come into JKD from experimenting with different arts, like the Western boxing, the French kickboxing, the Thai boxing, because they all tend to utilize a weaker side forward thing, the traditional left side forward if you're a right-hander. But what the discussion underscored is, as Sifu Chris ultimately concluded, is that the lead that you adopt, the lead that you fight out of, that is less important than your ability to hit an opponent with speed, with power, with accuracy, to hit them effectively, right? And he admonished us to remember that strong side forward is a principle and not so much a rule that must not and cannot be violated, right? Again, the quotation marks because, you know, context and subtlety, right? Okay, I had meant to do a segment on Wing Chun, but then I realized that we pretty much covered that back in part 6 of the whole Jeet Kune and its associated disciplines series. So you can find that on the YouTube as it's broadcast number 76. Right, so in mentioning the associated disciplines, I had told you that I still wanted to remind you that I'll be producing a video series on that whole thing. And so if you want to be notified when that's available, when that's made available, just send an email to jkdrebel@gmail.com, right? And I'll add you to the list for that. Right, okay, so that's it for today. So feel free, share, like, comment, ask questions. I will review everything after posting. Sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook and when we post the final edit videos back on Facebook and also on the YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. At ilovejeetkundo.com, the Quick Skills Series Volume 1 is available. Coming up on Friday, June 21st, the Jeet Kune Dialogues will be with Dean Franco. I'm pretty sure that's at 6 p.m. I will be on the road, so the times might get switched around, but I'll keep my fingers crossed that nothing too untoward happens. And I'll see you back here next week, same time, for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Today is a pastel day, so there we go. That's it. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Take care.